I'm Shelley and welcome to my Bellingen studio. Thanks for being here today in this very strange lockdown world. Last year I did a residency at Gallery Lane Cove studio. It seems a long time ago now, but I wanted to explore gender issues from a female perspective, given the current environment of the Me Too movement, the Red Shoe demonstrations, and all the issues women were speaking out against, such as abuse and domestic violence, inequality. And so I thought, well, how can I reflect this in my work? Because it's in, I thought it was a very important stage in our history, in our culture. So I applied to do the residency, and I thought I'd do mixed media because I wanted to free up and experiment and do something completely different from the work that I normally do, which is in oil paintings and charcoal and pen and ink drawings. Mixed media is painting, drawing, printmaking, where you add collage, found objects, or any kind of material you want to the surface of the work. Ansel Kiefer's a really good example of this, as he used metal, straw, plaster, cloth, a whole assortment of things to his work. Curators and people that have to restore his work absolutely go bonkers when they have to deal with any of his, when they have to really put an exhibition together, because bits fall off all the time. So it's a fun process, it's a freeing process, you can experiment, you don't have to get hung up on the results. I tend to work in series, so I have a number of works going on at the same time. This allows me to work on something while something's drying, and it also allows me not to be too precious about the end result, because if I do a whole series, I can then choose what I think is good at the end if I'm having a show and I need, and I want to put a work in it. So I just think enjoy it. Look at your art history, at the Dada, Surrealist, Pop period, Cubism, just so that it can give you some sort of inspiration as to what they were doing and how that would be applicable for you today and the way they're doing it. Oh, by the way, that's my little constant companion, Indigo, that you saw at the beginning of the clip. She's with me all the time. Now today we're just going to look at the process of collage and mixed media, and you might ask what it is or what the difference is. It's interchangeable really. Collage is the building up of an image through paper, material, cloth, cutouts, and putting together to make up an image. A lot of people used it as throughout art history for satirical comment and political comment. So you'll see people like Hannah Hoch and John Hartfield, who were part of the Berlin Dada movement. You'll see Pauline Botti in Pop-Up, who reflects really the social issues at the time. Braque and Picasso used paper collier in the early Cubist periods. It's a good media to play around with. I'll quickly go through materials, and it's really anything you have in the studio and anything you want to use. So I have lots of bits of paper I cut out. I have materials like muslin and cloth, all your pen and inks, an array of those. I tend to use pen and inks and watercolours because I'm not an acrylic painter, but you might prefer to use acrylics. I've got a whole array of brushes. You need a lot of this, and you need, I have chipped crockery, just so that I can lay out the medium and the water, and you need lots of water. And I'd have everything put out so that you can then just pick it up as you need it. The two most important things to keep in mind when you're looking at materials is the medium you're going to use and the kind of paper. You need a heavy paper, maybe 220 to 300 grams, because you're using a lot of water in this technique, and the paper will buckle if it's too thin. You also need to think of the tooth of the paper, because if you're using watercolour paper, if it's too textured, then what's going to happen is it's going to be harder to apply, and the fine lines are a little bit more difficult. I don't know if there's much more about paper. I think the medium is really important. So I use a matte medium. You can use gloss or semi-gloss. Also, there's a heavy bodied medium, but that's often used more in painting and to build up texture. I think if you're working on paper, it's better to use this, and you can see it's a lot more viscous and easier. It's easier to apply. The medium itself is it's transparent. It sort of extends the pigment, and it acts as a glue. So I'll show you basically how it works. So I've got a piece of paper. I've put an R on it. I've added this medium, the acrylic medium, onto the letter R. I've covered the whole sheet with yellow watercolour. Well, actually it was yellow inks. I've then wiped back over this area and the R's where I've put the medium, and as you can see, that remains white and the yellow stays. The next step was putting some medium over the yellow and then applying the red all the way through to here. Then once again getting a very wet piece of paper, you apply it over where you've put the medium, and it lifts off the red. So the rest stays, and where you've put that medium, it lifts off. And then the third stage is I've put a purple, I've applied once again the medium, I put a purple ink over that, and then I've wiped that back again so that I get areas of the red. Lastly, I put some black ink over it and did a bit of squiggly things there. This is a very early study I did using the medium on the text. It was part of my Girl, Daughter, Woman, Wife, Mother series, and I'll just show you what I did, the steps. So first of all I make up a transfer, and I have it in different sizes, so I can vary that depending on the sheets, the size of the sheets. Then I transfer that onto the paper. I just let you know it's always a good idea to rule up a border. If you don't rule up a border and you end up framing something, you will lose edges. Now, you might think 2 centimetres isn't very important, but you might have a particular piece of light or a colour or a thumb or a detail that if you lose that little section, it makes the work duller. So always have your border. So what I do here, I've done these already because they take a while to dry and you have to work through things, is I will just go over this with the medium. I make up the transfers because I want a consistency in print, and if you apply it fairly loosely, it can still look as if it's, you know, hand done and fairly rough, which is what I like. So I just brush this on, and what happens here is where I've put the medium on the lettering, the paper, it will remain white when I put the different colours over it. So what I need to do is just let that dry. So what you see is the ink has gone into the paper, and where the medium is, it sits on, I wipe it off and it remains white. I've let this sheet dry and I've put the medium on the words, and now I'm going to show you the next step. I'm going to start with the yellow. You don't have to, you can start with any colour, but sometimes lighter colours are better to start with. I'm also going to put a little bit of ink, to throw a little bit more ink here, just in case I want to use that. Also, what will I do? I'll do that. I think I'll just then, I might just put a little bit of the grey. So you can see, use lots of water and vary it. Now what I have to do is, I've got a saucer here with water in it. You see this. What I'm going to do is wipe off the parts. This is another example. So I've already put the medium on the text. I go over with some yellow. I have the paper already wet, because you have to work quickly, otherwise it tends to, the ink dries on the surface of the medium, which at this particular point I don't want. There you go. So you can see, you have to work quickly. It's really important. So you can see how that works. I might now quickly put some grey over. Sometimes you can keep it straight. You can mix it in, depending on what effect you want. Once again, I'll just dampen that off there. See how messy it gets, and that gives you, say, just a bit of idea of how things See here, I've left it a little bit too long before wiping it off, so the paint actually sort of dries on the surface of the medium and it stays that colour. And sometimes that's quite a good effect to have too. I mean, everything can kind of mix a bit around. So I need to wait and let that dry before I apply any other medium to it, and then another colour. I said I had the paper wet, and I meant the kitchen paper, and I just have it wet in a saucer like that because, as I said before, you really do have to work. You have to work very quickly, otherwise it dries onto the medium, which is usually not what you want, although it can be a bit. This is another one. And what I'm going to do on this, or what I've already done, is I've put some tissue paper. You can see the white where the medium is. I've applied the yellow. I've put some tissue paper, and I just thought so you can see that over the tissue paper, that effect there. And once again, I'll wipe it off. Wipe quite a bit of it off actually, but I want greys up here, just as something. I've got tissue paper up here, as you can see as well. I might leave some dark. I want part of that left. Part of that still to stay white. This is the part I want. Okay, so I'll let that dry. I might just put some red here as a and I just really want to wipe that away. I don't really want such harsh brush strokes there, but I can do other things with that later. So that's the beginning, and with this I've got some gauze over here, so some will go through, and I might just add some yellow while I'm at it. And once again the tissue over here and here, just to wipe out that. I'll let these dry. I'll add some medium and maybe some other materials, and then I'll come back to it and see how I'm going. So that kind of gives you a bit of an idea of first part of the process. Back to this one, and I've put the medium down, and now I'm going to put some red over it. Okay, so it's starting to look a bit interesting. I'm going to let this dry and then I'll put some maybe tissue paper and gauze. I might actually want a bit of a stronger red there somewhere. Where will I do that? Here. It's not that strong, is it? It's a bit washy. I'll have it here. That's looking a bit more interesting. I'll put a bit of splatter on it, not much, just a little bit here. I'll leave it at that. And I'll wait till it dries. I'll put some more medium on and some more colour. Then I'll probably start adding a few other materials. I'm going to put a bit of tissue paper on this. So I'll put it on the back. I've already cut the strips. Put it here and put it down a bit. See how this paper buckles, and that's why it's always a good idea, which is what is to have it stuck to a board like this one here, and that keeps it nice and flat. I'm kind of wondering as I do this what I need to be doing next, because I think it's probably a little bit anemic in colour and everything. So I'll put this down. I'll have to let it dry. I've put a bit of medium in other parts, so I'm going to have to let that dry. I will apply this now, which is my bit of muslin, and I want to get the threads all over the place, so this is always a bit tricky. So I'll just apply this like this. I'll try and spread it out a bit, and I'll lose it, I know, when I put the stuff on again. So I want the threads to kind of go out and look a bit, yeah, I'll put a bit more of this on. Oops. If this wasn't a demonstration, I'd probably take a lot more time getting it all unravelled, and I'll make my placement a bit better, but this is just really showing you, you know, what the different effects are. So want that unlumped. Now I'm going to let this dry, and then I think I'll put a little bit of, start some pen and ink work just to start making it look a bit more alive. I don't like that bit there, so I'll tease it out a bit. I don't want that stretched there. Okay. The tissue paper and the gauze has now dried, so I'm going to add a bit of colour. That's quite a lot. And then I'll add a little bit, maybe a little bit more down here over the tissue paper, so you can see the effect of I'll add a little bit of blue for something different, just so you can mop up some of that water. So that's already started to liven it up a little bit, but I think I'm going to now put some, a bit later, put some black ink over it, and maybe some more textured elements. I'll put something like this. I'll work out what to do. I've done a little test run here again, and you can see the tissue paper over the print. It's also pencil to increase the greys, as well as the grey. I think I used watercolour there, and then I put pencil over so you can see the darker and the lighter. You can see what the tissue does. It sort of softens everything. And then I've added some pastel and some inks. So this already has this mesh over it, and now I'm going to just build up a few things. This is a really interesting kind of tissue paper. It gives it's sort of furry, and it gives a completely different effect. And I might do something like that up here. So oh, that's got purple in it. Maybe that'll work. I'll just go over like this. So we'll get that. And when you see something like that, you can see I've put pastel down here as well as ink, black ink as well as the inks, and we'll see. It'll probably stay like that really. I was going to have it the other way, but I didn't check my brush then, it had a little bit of purple in it, so I'd advise you always to clean your brushes. And as you can see, this paper isn't buckling so much because of the border around it. But this is a really nice one. It's good to have different kinds of textures. I don't mind a bit of the colour coming through on that. It just adds a bit of variety. I might straighten that out a bit more. I want that smooth rather than buckly. And then I'll look at adding, I've got strings here, so I've already got these kind of lines, and so I might do something like this. Cut it, I don't like it, I fold it. So then I'll glue this on top just to give another kind of dimension as to the work. It can kind of complement the lines of the ink. I can continue. I'll let this dry and then I'll continue with this later until I get an image that looks interesting. While the work was drying, I just continued on the collage that you saw a bit earlier. I've added a reference to John Hartfield. You already recognise the Brandenburg Gates. And then I've got the young girl who was brought down by a lot of police in the London demonstration. And myself, of course, I've just added in for a bit of fun, as well as Pussy Riot, who I think are fantastic. So I'll keep working on this. At some stage I'll put some drawing into it, or I might put some other... I've probably done enough of the actual image collage, but I'll continue it with drawing and maybe some colour. Another option for this is I can take a photograph and then I can put it on the computer and work on it digitally, like do some drawing or block art with colour or add other images digitally. So the good thing with today's technology is you can start something like this and then you can make it into a print. Usually with things like this I might do one or two or three. I wouldn't do a huge runoff. I'd keep them more as a very small or a one-off edition.